Hello, back for just a brief time to create with you. On this episode of Create Your World, we're going back to the drawing page or iPad in this case. So you might, yeah, and I got short hair too. That's the other creative thing. But anyway, I wanted to follow up because I think the last video I was starting a little too fast for people who maybe don't have any experience drawing. So I'm going to start with something a lot more basic right now, and we're going to build back up to drawing what we see. But for many of you, you're going to be using lines to draw. What is a line? Well, line, of course, if you have a graph, you have 2 points and the thing that connects it is a line. I'm going to the iPad here. Let me show you. I went ahead and changed the background color to more of a gray because it's nicer on my eyes and your eyes. And if I just go to grab a regular, what's like a pencil, okay? If I hold my pen, if you're using a traditional pen or pencil, it's going to work the same, more on the side of the pencil because of what we're going to do with it. This would be like straight up and down. I don't know if you want to call that perpendicular. You don't have so much of a tilt, but if you lean it more and you get more of the edge of the tip of maybe your pencil or your charcoal or your Conte, then you get maybe a wider effect. You could call that maybe a low angle stroke. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. If I just draw regular lines, there are 2 ways, well, there's 3, but there's 2 main ways on something this size you're going to draw. One of them is going to focus more on going from your hand to your wrist. It's very small movements. You have another that's a little bit larger of a stroke that's going to go basically your entire elbow. We're not moving your wrist so much. Now, if you're experiencing some pain in your wrist, you might like these a lot more. And if you have a larger canvas, then you're going to be doing these strokes that go almost all the way to your shoulder, and you're going to be moving more at your hips, and that kind of keeps it controlled. So follow along if you have something to write with. And if I just go with the line, I'm going to go up to down, and I have very little of the angle. Now, if I angle it more, you're starting to see maybe a wider one like that. Okay, and so what you're doing is just practicing making some lines. You go one side, try to make kind of a lot in a row. You can try to go a little bit light and then push down and get more darkness. So you get some variation of your tones. Okay, so that's a basic line. Well, that's a straight line. Well, let's try making one that's curved. So we have basically 4 directions. You got the one that's looking like this. You've got its counterpart looking like that. You've got ones that are going maybe this way, ones that are going the other way. All of those, that one, I drew mostly with just my wrist because they're very small lines. If I was making bigger ones, I could go from my elbow. It's just not as easy for me. And also, there's not much curve on my head. I should say tilt, because we are making curves. If I want to tilt the pen more, what I would do is I would then go more from my elbow because it's comfortable for me. And I would kind of go over and over and over. And I'm learning the pressure of the tool I'm using, how much pressure I need to use, and how much, in this case, it's digital, but on a canvas, it would be pigment or charcoal or graphite, whatever you're laying down, you're figuring out the quality of the tool you're using, how much of the color is going to the canvas to change from being just blank to having something on it. Okay, so we've got some curved ones. Well, those can also be more squared. They don't have to have so much curve to them. What do I do with my tool here? I selected the eraser. Okay, there's some shortcuts I don't know. And if I start to make these lines in a sequence, now we've got something called like a shape. It's almost a square. If you're being very technical, the corners are maybe vertices, and the connecting segment edge is your line. So I could easily make maybe a square like that. If it's more comfortable for you to draw the points and then connect with the line, you can do it that way. All right. And you notice that my lines aren't extremely straight. They don't have to be. I'm okay with that. Okay, but maybe I just want to practice making something that's decent, like this. And you kind of see the line isn't so thin now. It's a little bit more hazy. But I think you know what squares, circles, triangles, rectangles, and ovals are. So if it's something that you've seen before, you just practice making a couple lines that connect. I'm making a rectangle. I'm using small strokes. If you want to practice the larger ones, you can, especially with circles. With circles or ovals, I tend to go with a stroke that goes from my elbow or my shoulder, just because to me, to make something that is small like that is okay. If I have to do that a lot, well, my hand and my wrist are going to get tired. So there you go. Now, if you want to go to that next place, if you're being technical, you can always make a three-dimensional by maybe adding another square and then connecting those points. I don't like this, and I'll tell you why. Look at the shape I just made, which is like a cube. Now, if I was doing that again, I would just draw the cube that's kind of behind it like this, but I've already got one line I don't even need, which is this one going inside, unless it's a box and you can see inside the box. But I have two wasted lines here, so I probably wouldn't do it this way. Just like if I have a triangle, am I really going to make a triangle back here and then connect it like this? Or would I just draw the triangle and make the line and do that instead? I think I would do the second one. It saves me a little bit of time. Now for you, that's up to you how you do it. So I'm making like a little tent or something like this, fine. But you do need some perspective. You need some perspective to see what the depth perception would be. And there's something later we'll look at called vantage point. And it's kind of where the view of your scene goes to. So all the lines need to correspond with whatever that vantage point is. You will notice on what's like amateur hour, the vantage point changes within the same picture. Unless the artist intends it to look strange for that reason, you immediately can call it out and say, well, that looks like a child did that. That wasn't really thinking of the vantage point, your point of view. Okay, so now if I go back to this circle up here, and I want to do something really easy. Remember the line that was very up and down like this made a thin line, where the line that was at a tilt made a fatter line. Well, what if I want to take that circle there and I just want to lightly go on the edge? I'm going to start adding some shadow. Now the most basic shadow, you just choose one side of your object. You kind of want to think in your brain, where is the light coming from? So in my brain, I'm saying the light's coming from the right, so I'm coloring the left, and I'm not going to make it completely even, because that's not how shadows work. And then maybe closer to the edge here, I'm going to make it even darker, and I'm going slowly, and I'm gradually increasing the pressure on my pencil. Again, this is digital. It's actually more challenging to do it this way than it would be just to use a traditional charcoal or pencil or something like that. But the idea is the same. And then underneath it, you're probably going to have something like that too. If your light's really coming from that side, you're probably going to have a little shadow on this edge. Okay? It's probably going to spill out because there's not going to be a hard line unless you have a hard light source. Okay? So bearing that in mind, I'm making this darker on this side. And already, with just that simple amount of detail, we can make it as dark or as light as we want. Again, I'm just working on one layer, so I don't want to get too detailed because then I can't really make it different later if I want to change something. But there you go. So with that very small amount of time, I've taken something that I think all of you can do, which is to make a shape, practice making some lines, get those fingers and those wrists and those tendons and those ligaments all warmed up to do something, connect it with your brain of what you want to draw. And then you're adding just a small amount of detail, and already it has a feeling of depth. I'm not a huge fan of making hard lines for the outline because I think that it takes me longer to get the contrast, but this is an awesome starting point. And I've seen videos and tutorials where people will show you if you draw the square and you draw the triangle, you've got your start of a house. Okay, not bad. So if you're already drawing basic shapes, then you can start to connect them to make things. And if you want to add to this, I wouldn't draw the interior lines because I know I would want to erase them later, but you're getting a basis for how to move your hand, your muscle memory, so that at least the basic shapes, at least your basic lines, your curves, have a little bit of a consistency to them. So that when you want to repeat what something looks like, you can. And then later, as we're looking at things in the real world, you can connect that association with the shapes that you already know how to draw, and you're going to arrive at something that's a little bit easier to follow faster because you're not creating from scratch. Now, if it was up to me, I like to draw very loose and very fluid. Like this dog, I'm not looking at the dog. I'm just doing this in my imagination. But if I did this again, you see what I did with I actually don't draw in a very traditional way when it comes to this, because a lot of people, like if they're going to draw the head of something, they would, let me get a pencil too. They would draw the head like a circle. They put the line where the eyes might be, which is roughly halfway down, the nose halfway down between the eyes and the chin, and then the mouth is halfway between the nose and the chin. The ears are behind the eyes, and then you kind of got your, keeps going to the eraser tool. Not sure why. But then you've got your other line that's kind of showing where the face is, and that's how you know how to point the nose this way. That would be kind of the more methodical approach to doing it. And there's nothing wrong with doing something that works. But if I'm just going to be drawing something fluid, let me just get all that stuff off of here. And let's go back to this idea. What if I want to just draw that dog again? And I want to start with the nose. Why would you start with the nose? Well, I like the nose, okay? I got the nose, got a little bit of a schnauzer here, okay? It's going to go back. Probably got some eyes going on here. Okay, a little scruffy head with some floppy ears. I'm okay with that. Again, this is just something I would use to warm up, okay? A little bit of a jaw. And then how's the dog going to be? Is the dog going to be sitting like it was the last time? Will it be standing? I don't know. Let's say if we wanted it standing, it's going to have kind of like a shoulder that comes back. It's got this over here. It's going to have what starts to be the hips. And then it's going to have like the tail can be up, can be down. How's the dog's mood? The dog's attitude or behavior is going to be how the ears are. It's going to be how the tail is, even how it's standing. But it's going to come down here to something like a chest. We know that it's got the leg. That's got to be some kind of a paw going on here. And I don't know, let's just say the dog is being alert and it's just kind of standing like this. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to spend too much time on the details. Again, this is just from my imagination anyway. And then I think the back legs might even go like this a little bit. Now, that's only because I've seen dogs before. If it's something that you're not familiar with, if you're drawing a giraffe or an elephant for the first time, you probably want to either see them at the zoo or look at pictures of them before just going at it. But you notice on my lines, I'm not too concerned even about making the eyes look that good yet. I'll come back and I'll do the detail stuff later. But I got the basic positioning, and I might even move the nose a little bit too. But again, the idea is before you're getting into any kind of drawing pattern, you want to be familiar with how much pressure you have to use, what it means when you go more up and down versus put it at an edge. Have an idea what the thing is, like if there's a light source or where you're looking at it from. This is more about drawing from imagination, because once you're looking at something, that's decided for you. You'll have the lights in a special place. You'll have the shadows already showing. And so this is a kind of a cheat. So with this dog here, if I was going to add some shadow, well, I would probably add some on the sides of its schnauzer here. And I would keep the top a little bit lighter, just because that's how the light naturally would hit. And down here, it'd probably be a little bit darker. Down here, under its head, it's going to be a little bit darker. Under its ears, A little bit of shadow down here, not a lot. Down here, definitely there's going to be some shadow because the body contours would be this way. Probably like, especially on this part and all that. So we know that, of course, where the paws meet the ground, you're going to have something going on here. And then, of course, what happens back here, well, this leg is supposed to be leg, would need to be a little darker to indicate, hey, this leg's farther away. And then under the dog, unless the dog is something magical, you're going to have a shadow for sure. So not a very good tool I'm using here to do my shadows. I can see that now. But the idea is I'm giving this some thought of where the light is, how it's going to hit. And this comes back to the whole thing with your shapes. So let me give this guy some shadow on the sides of his ears a little bit. So I don't know what you decided to draw, but start with the shapes. Start with your simple line stuff. Start with making things that you can do and add a little bit of shadow. Put some points on there if you want to add some points. If it helps you to follow a path that way, that's cool. All right, and we have the straight lines, you have the curved lines. So your warm-up should consist of going each direction, and then remember about going from the hand to the wrist versus the wrist to the elbow, because it's going to affect how your line comes out. So I hope that this was helpful to you, and I'm learning along with you. I'm trying to relearn some of the basics so that it's easier to bring somebody up that maybe has no knowledge of drawing. So until the next time you come back to the channel, create something, make it your own, create your world.